What's up everyone? Welcome back to another Appletree Surfboards repair video. So we want to do a full series of repair videos so you can tackle most of the repairs on our boards yourself to keep them in tip-top condition. Now we did a video last year about small repairs on carbon fiber boards. We got a lot of you guys asking if we could do a video on larger repairs where actual carbon fiber is needed in the repair. If you haven't seen the first video, go and watch it here. It is quite an interesting one because it's a nice quick introduction in doing small repairs you can do yourself, and now on to this big one. So this mini foil here has taken quite a beating. It got into a big crash, and you can see, well, this is about as bad as we see it. The carbon is completely cracked, and if you push it, you can see it separates. It's delaminated from the foam core, so that's a bad thing. We want to remove all that. So if you just feel around, you can see that it's where you can push it in and it moves. All of that stuff needs to be replaced, and there where it's stuck, get a little extra, and we're going to start by removing all of this excess, and so we can assess the damage on the inside. Our preferred tool to remove this kind of material is an oscillating multi-tool. These are quite cheap, especially if you get a corded one. We use these battery ones, they're a little bit nicer, but these basically oscillate very quickly, and that way you can cut through the carbon fiber without running the risk of pulling it up too much, so you remove too much carbon fiber. So I'm going to cut quite a large square, and then we're going to see what it looks on the inside. So here we go. So here we go. As you can see, I cut away the entire damaged area. You saw me check a couple of times if I got all the loose bits. Like I said, I really want to remove all the carbon fiber that is loose from the core, plus a little bit extra to give me enough room to put the repair around. As you can see, the foam underneath also took a bit of a beating. So there are some spots that have some soft foam. What I like to do is also the spots that have soft foam with like something sharp, a screwdriver or something, remove them so the repair has solid foam to connect to. So just remove this excess. This is all fine. This is all fine. It's a bit like the dentist. You have to remove everything that's rotten first before you can start fresh with the repair. Now the next step that we need to do, I'm going to grab a sander and I'm going to just roughly sand around this area. Be super careful when you're sanding that you're not get your sandpaper trapped under here so it flips up. Give it like a light passing with a sanding disc that's bigger than the repair, and try to avoid the edges. So I'm just going to take this lip down a little bit, and then we're going to fill the entire void with an epoxy and glass bubble mix to give us a smooth surface for then the next step to put new carbon fiber on the repair and work it into the existing carbon fiber so we get a smooth repair. So the next job, bit of sanding, mask back on. Okay, as you could see, I sanded quickly around the edges with the 60 grit, so really rough to just open it up, get the carbon exposed. Here on the corner there were still some loose bits, so I cut a little bit further and created this sort of flange to connect the new carbon in the future. But first we're going to fill this entire void with the epoxy and glass bubbles mix to make a smooth surface for the carbon fiber in the next step. So here we go. Okay, so time to fill. I made a epoxy glass bubble mix, like we done in the other video. as you can see, I made it really thick, so I added more glass bubbles to make this thick paste. I want to have it thick because I really want to be able to smear it into all of these voids and cavities and to leave a smooth surface. If you make this too thin, it will run off. It will be easier to smear into the cracks, but it will run off your repair. Too easy. Really get it into all the little, also the areas that we grind open with the machine. And then sort of use your spatula to smear it everywhere. And this sands away really easy, so it doesn't matter if we add a little bit too much now. It's also the surface that we're going to use to reshape the board, let's say, when we're in the next step. Now, final trick that I sometimes use, I don't think it's necessary in this case, is where I use some tape or some plastic and just tape it over this mix just to be sure that it doesn't start running, because if it gets warm, I know it looks like it's a complete paste now, but it's still sort of a liquid, so I like to sort of cover it with a bit of tape to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. And actually with the tape you can also still manipulate it a little bit, get it into all of those like nooks and crannies. So there we go, that's the next step. Leave that overnight and we'll come back tomorrow and sand it smooth. So it's now the next day, the resin is fully cured, so it's time to remove the tape and then sand it flush again. So it's completely filled, there's a little bit extra. I'm gonna sand this not with a 60 grit but a slightly lower grit, because I have to now be careful that I don't sand the carbon fiber more than it already is sanded. So as you could see, it's fairly easy to sand this down. This material with the glass bubbles is made to be sanded smooth. And what I've done is I've sanded it a little further than flush with this, because we're going to add 2 layers of carbon fiber that's going to add thickness to. So to blend it all in, you sand it a little bit further, make sure the edges are nicely hit, so you expose the carbon so it has something to connect to for the next layer. So now we're going to patch this with carbon fiber, so that's the next step. So to do the final repair, I've prepared a couple of things. So we've mixed a little bit of black in the epoxy. This helps when you have like tiny openings and stuff, just to hide the white from underneath. Then I've cut this one piece of carbon fiber that's exactly the size of the repair, and this second piece that is bigger. So we're going to do a double layup, first a small one, then the bigger one over the top. That will blend in nicely. And then I've prepared this piece of plastic, which we're going to pull over the repair when it's done, which really saves time in sanding this. And also it helps with eliminating any air bubbles, especially this carbon fiber compared to glass fiber. It's really stiff. As you can see, you can actually hold the bit like that. So it's not as easy to laminate as glass fiber is, although it's still roughly the same. It just doesn't wrap around corners so easy. So having a bit of plastic so you can pull it over the top to wrap it around the corner is handy. We don't need to wrap it around the corner now, but it's just good to have anyway. So first smear the whole repair with black epoxy, and then So what you're trying to do with the plastic is really work out the air, and it really helps saturate the epoxy into the carbon fiber. What we do here at Appletree is we use a vacuum infusion process normally, and that really pushes the epoxy into the fiber of the carbon. Of course, at home that's not possible, but this also is a good second where you can really push these air bubbles out to the side and away from the carbon fiber and really work in that epoxy into the carbon. And then finally what we like to do is just to tape this really tightly around the board so it really pushes down. And now finally try to work out the last air bubbles, which are now clearly visible. So again, 24 hours have passed and it's now time to start finishing this board. So let's remove the tape and the plastic and see what we're dealing with. There's still a small indentation, but that will fill up with the final layers. There's some edges here, but they're quite easy to sand out. So I'm now going to sand this smooth. Meanwhile, being super careful not to hit the original layer and to sort of try and blend them in without removing too much of this and without hitting that much of the existing layer. So be super careful sanding this, slow and steady. 100 grit, 120 grit, not too coarse, just to make sure you don't destroy it more than it originally was. So now it's properly blended in. You can see me constantly feel, because feeling in this case with all the black is the best guide to see how far you are, especially in these edges. There's the double layer of the original layer plus the repair layer, so you can sand a little bit further, but you also want to be careful that you don't remove too much. So the highest risk here is that you remove too much of the new material and you create a new hole basically. In this case, I'm quite confident that I hit it smoothly everywhere. I did remove quite a lot of the carbon fiber, as you can see by my black hands, but that's fine because we added a double thick layer, which is more than there was originally. So it should be plenty strong. Now it's time to start finishing process, which requires taping off the area and then covering it with a layer of epoxy resin, just epoxy. There is a slight deeper section here. Not 100% sure, it might require 2 layers to smooth it all out, but we'll see tomorrow when the first layer is dry whether it needs another. But it's almost done. It's strong enough now, just needs proper finishing. I taped off the entire area, leaving this little flap. It helps with dripping so it doesn't roll onto the other side of the board, it just drips on the floor. Now it's just a case of really brushing in that layer of epoxy. It helps with epoxy to really brush it. You will see that if you put it on and then 5 minutes later it's full of fish eyes again. It's because it's not paint, it needs this working into all the little nooks and crannies basically. And so really work it in. Epoxy has hardened. It looks really, really good. It might need another layer just to fill up all the last little holes, and also there's still that little dent here. Just gonna remove the tape and give it a quick sand, and then we can see if it needs another layer or if we are done. It's almost there. You can see I have sanded through the last layer a little bit just to get everything smooth. You could leave it at this and then go to the finishing process, but because we have a bit more time, I'm gonna add one more thin layer to this as like a final coat to seal in that carbon fiber that's now exposed, just to make it that little bit nicer, but could be done like this. It's full strength, it's all good, but just gonna finish it a little bit nicer. Alright, so it's now again the next day. This second hot coat was worth it because it's way smoother now. So yeah, like I said, totally worth doing this second time. The only thing we now have to do is sand it smooth and blend it in with the original laminate. In this case, I'm gonna go very fine on the sandpaper. So I'm gonna start with a 240, then 320, 400 to just smooth it out. Like I said in the beginning, you will always see this repair. It's carbon fiber. It's almost impossible. It's basically impossible to match the weave. With the glass fiber, the weave will be completely invisible, so it's much easier to repair. With the carbon, you will always see it, but at least it's technically fully strong again, and it's ready for its next use and another couple of years of life for sure in this board. So removing the tape, I'm gonna sand it all the way down, and then I'll talk you through the finishing process. So it's super smooth. You really don't feel the repair anymore, which is, I think, always very important, because that's what people will do, is rub their hands around. The line in the boards is back, the rail is nice and smooth again. And then there's one final thing that, especially on the carbon boards, that we like to do, is finish it with some clear coat. Spray paint cans that we also use for the small scratches repair video that we did last year. So I'm just gonna finish this, clean it with a bit of alcohol, let it dry off, and then give it a super light dusting of this matte clear coat that will completely blend it in with the rest of the finish of the board. And then it's done, ready for a new life. Okay, so the matte varnish is dry. You can see that it's already super nice. I'm just gonna give it one final little bit of a rub with some wet 1500 sandpaper, but totally optional, just to blend it in. So there you have it. It's as good as new, as I would say. You will still see it, of course, due to the carbon fiber, but it's completely strong. It's maybe even stronger than before because I used more carbon than was on the board originally. So if you've got any questions about this repair or under repair videos that we've done, post a comment down below. We read them all, we try to answer them all. Let us know maybe what else kind of repairs you want to see in this series. Give us a thumbs up, give us a follow, and we hope to see you in the next one.